Well, the state is fighting to investigate the shootings of both Bryna Godar and Alex Preddy by federal agents this month as immigration operations escalate. Now, depending on what they find, could the state press charges against the officers who shot the people here in Minnesota? We wanted to get some insight about this from a legal expert. So joining me now is Bryna Godar with the University of Wisconsin-Madison Law School. Thank you so much for joining us. We really can't wait to talk to you because we have so many questions. And I know that you had an article you put out with an explainer that asked, can states prosecute federal officials? That would be our question right now. Can they?
The short answer is yes. States have a long history of bringing criminal charges against federal officers when they overstep and act beyond the bounds of state law and federal law. There are some limits on that, but broadly, states do have this power.
So how often are state prosecutions of federal officials successful? Because I'm sure you have community members saying, will they really be held, to the point of what a normal person would be held to? Is there an answer to that?
So these prosecutions are relatively rare because when the federal government itself pursues a criminal case and a thorough investigation, then states don't necessarily need to step in and bring these charges. And where they do, states face some additional hurdles compared to a federal prosecution. So there is something known as supremacy clause immunity that gives federal officials some immunity from state prosecutions, but it's only immunity where they're acting reasonably in carrying out lawful federal duties. And so it's not an absolute immunity like we've seen some folks claiming.
Yes, speaking of that, the Trump administration has previously said that ICE officers enjoy absolute immunity, as you just mentioned there. What do you make of that?
It's simply not accurate. There is no absolute immunity for federal officers when they're on duty. They still have to act within the bounds of federal law, and where they are violating federal law and state law, then states can bring these prosecutions.
And now knowing that the federal government has blocked Minnesota from the investigations into these shootings involving federal agents, we know the BCA went initially on Saturday to try to collect evidence. They were blocked. They then went to go get a judicial warrant. They were again blocked. How might that complicate the ability to prosecute here?
If the state and local prosecutors and investigators aren't able to obtain enough information and enough evidence, that could seriously hinder their ability to make that charging decision and build a case. And it really just depends on what information they're able to get their hands on. State officials and county officials have set up portals for the public to submit evidence. There are certainly ways that the state and local officials can go about investigating even without the federal government's cooperation. And there might be pathways for state and local officials to sue to get access to the information that the federal government withholds as well.
So that could be done through a lawsuit?
Potentially, yes.
Got it. And there are some historical examples here as well of states prosecuting federal officials. Are there any that come to mind that might relate to what we are seeing here in the state of Minnesota and also the city of Minneapolis?
Yeah, so there is a case from the 1970s where a Border Patrol agent shot and severely injured a man who was running away, and he was convicted in state court of assault with a deadly weapon. And that case is of limited use on the immunity question because the officer didn't raise immunity at the trial, but it is notable in terms of that case actually going to a jury and resulting in a state court conviction for federal actions. And then we have seen other cases where state prosecutors have gotten past the immunity hurdle, including in a high-profile 1990s case regarding the incident at Ruby Ridge where an FBI sniper shot and killed an unarmed woman. And the Ninth Circuit ultimately said that that case could go ahead. A federal prosecutor did drop that, an Idaho prosecutor did drop that case afterwards, after there was a change in who was the county prosecutor, but that did clear that immunity hurdle, at least initially.
Does that process take a while to even get to the point?
Yes, it definitely can take a long time. It depends on how strong the case is and how it plays out in federal court. in that Ruby Ridge case, the incidents took place in 1992, and it wasn't until 2001 that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that that case could proceed. So there can potentially be lengthy litigation, but it depends on how the federal courts handle it and how quickly they go about handling appeals and the docket and everything.
Wow, but that does put it into perspective of how long it could potentially last. Where do these cases tend to play out? Do they stay in state court or move to federal court, and does it make a difference in between those two?
These cases almost always play out in federal court instead of state court. State and local prosecutors would file the charges in state court, and then the federal official would almost certainly claim federal immunity and use that as the basis to move the case from state court to federal court. There's a law that allows federal officers to do that when they have a federal defense. And so the case would probably take place in federal court. It doesn't necessarily make a huge difference in terms of what the prosecution looks like. There are some differences practically in terms of what the jury pool is and, of course, who is presiding over it. But it would be state and local prosecutors who would still be prosecuting the case. And if it ultimately went to a trial, it would be a trial for a state crime. And if a conviction for a state crime, which means that the president would not be able to pardon it.
Professor Godar, I'm sure a lot of people at this point, I think people all across the country have seen videos coming out of Minnesota. Do you have anything to say to them about, as we talk about this potential of, federal immunity and what could potentially happen, anything that you would say to people in the community about this investigation in particular?
I think it's just worth knowing that this is a proper role for state and local investigators and prosecutors. It's not something that we're used to in recent years because there has been more cooperation between the federal government and states in recent years, but we have seen these cases in larger numbers during periods in the past where we've seen increased friction. And it's a really important tool that states do have, and was a part of how this country was designed at the founding, to have states be able to be a check when the federal government oversteps, and vice versa is also true, but we've sort of forgotten the important role of states there in being a check on the federal government and possible overreaches.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. Bryna Godar, University of Wisconsin-Madison Law School professor. We really appreciate your insight because so many people have so many questions. So this is definitely some great information.
Thanks for having me. And I'll just note briefly that I'm a staff attorney at the State Democracy Research Initiative. I'm not officially a professor yet. But,
well, look,
great to be here.
We're speaking it into existence. We are speaking it into existence. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Apologies for that.
Bye.
All right. Also coming up after the break, we're going to take a quick break here at 1:38. We also spoke with Rob Olson, spoke with Senator Amy Klobuchar today to get her reaction, of course, to what is going on right now. We know the governor and the president talked on the phone this morning. She might have a response to that. Before we do that, we want to take a quick check of our weather forecast.
Yeah, it's a cold one. Wind chills this morning. It was feeling like nearly 30 degrees below zero. We're starting to improve, generally closer to like 15 degrees below zero at the moment. And by this afternoon, maybe you get enough work or school. Hey, it's still feeling like just below 0 degrees. That's the Twin Cities. Much worse as you go north elsewhere. What about tomorrow morning? It's getting worse still. The breeze is going to be there tonight, and it's going to be there tomorrow. 15 or worse below zero, and then we're warming up again, but not above zero. Not again. Still not happening. That's tomorrow afternoon. It's going to be copy-pasted for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday as well. Every day this week will feel like it's well below zero, and then it just by the afternoon it warms up to maybe zero at best. It's going to be a cold week, folks, but the flip side of that is lots of sunshine to enjoy, especially when it gets cold this time of year, this part of the country. The sun shines pretty hard on the cold days. 14 degrees is our high temperature today. Like I mentioned, it's not going to feel like it with that breeze out of the south up to 15 miles per hour. It could spur a couple of light snowflakes around 6 p.m. Don't count on it. Don't expect it. I'm just letting you know, if you see it, it's not going to be problematic. It would be very brief. Overnight tonight, we'll drop to 2 degrees above zero. That's a nice change. Like I said, it's not going to feel much colder than that. And tomorrow, 8 degrees with the sun shining strong. It's going to do that all work week long. But by the weekend, we're finally talking warmer temperatures, and I can't wait to show you those.
As we continue to talk about Operation Metro Surge here in the city of Minneapolis, in the state of Minnesota, we have been talking with a lot of people. One of them, Senator Amy Klobuchar. Rob Olson, you had a chance to speak with her this morning.
Yeah, she came in today for a good sit-down interview. You know, she's been making the rounds, appearing on the Sunday morning shows yesterday. I mean, in Minnesota right now, going back to D.C. tomorrow. Certainly, though, at a time where things may be evolving here pretty quickly with Operation Metro Surge, and so we talked to her about what has changed. Certainly the thoughts with inside some of her GOP counterparts as well. And so let's listen to the conversation with U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar. U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar, busy couple of days for you, heading back to D.C. tomorrow. There have been a growing, calls from the GOP side of the aisle now in Congress, some GOP governors, about a fair, transparent, thorough investigation. What do you see happening here?
I think there's a sea change going on, and what we knew was happening in Minnesota, whether you're Democrat or Republican, that this was getting out of hand. We have 3,000 ICE agents and only 1,100 sworn officers in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Our 10 metro police departments, there's more ICE agents here, and out of balance, resulting in horrific shootings. Of course, 2 out of the 3 killings in Minnesota have been at the hands of in Minneapolis have been at the hands of federal agents. And so that's where we are. And what has happened with I would say the videos of the shooting of Alex Preddy, and people seeing, at first it's confusing, but then when you see the enlargement of the videos with the fact that he was a lawful gun owner and that gun was in the holster and it was removed by federal agents and then he was shot in the back, those things are very chilling for the people of this country. So the pushback yesterday was intense. Finally, we had some Republican senators, House members, gun owners, the NRA, some local legislators saying enough. We need a transparent investigation, but a number of them saying this is not okay. Police chiefs in Minnesota and across the country. And I think that has gotten to a pitched level. So what we've been seeing for weeks has finally made it in a big way into the White House.
Had you been hearing any of that GOP concern prior to Saturday? Had it been starting to bubble up?
I had some discussions with Republican senators, so some of it was out there. But honestly, I think yesterday was the breaking point. And that has led, of course, to the president having a discussion with Governor Walz and, not doing a mean tweet coming out of it. And I actually have been talking to various people in the administration for weeks, as have a number of people, our police chiefs, the business community, obviously Chief O'Hara, and really pleading with them to say, stop this. And basically 3,000 ICE agents, get them out of here. They're not making us safe. They're making us less safe. Fraud investigation, please help with that. Apprehending violent offenders, yes, that is a worthy purpose for everyone. But that's not what this has turned into. So I'm hoping that this de-escalation will continue. We need them out of our towns. It's not just Minneapolis-St. Paul, suburbs, small towns.
Yeah, you mentioned the president having a conversation with Governor Walz. I believe you've been in touch with parts of the administration as well. And now the border czar, Tom Homan's being dispatched here. What does all this mean collectively then?
I hope, and this administration can change course very quickly, but I hope that this leads to a decision that while work will continue to be done on violent offenders and on fraud, that this huge number of ICE agents, some of whom are clearly not trained as our police officers are in Minnesota, that they simply leave our state.
You think that's actually nearing the potential outcome of that?
I hope so.
You don't know.
This is based on my discussions with Republicans yesterday and this morning, and certainly the police chiefs coming out statewide and nationally asking for a change and making very clear that they are concerned about the rule of law and following police procedures. That's got to, at some level, affect the president.
And if Tom Homan, the border czar, is coming here, that signals what?
Well, I don't agree with everything he does, but he is the boss of, clearly of the border control involvement in the shooting. of Alex Preddy is going to be a major issue going forward. So I hope that he's coming here to de-escalate and to say, we are going to listen to the police chiefs, listen to the business community, listen to elected leaders.
Okay.
And we have said enough is enough.
As a former prosecutor, Hennepin County attorney, I want to get your take on this. When the head of the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension discloses they were denied access to the scene, then got a signed warrant, and were still denied access to the scene. As a former prosecutor, how does that strike you?
Well, this is unbelievable to me because we have a very professional Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. They have investigated heinous murders. They have investigated police-involved shootings before. They have investigated, sex rings, you name it. They are very good. And we have always been able to coordinate FBI, Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, local county attorney's office, U.S. attorney, and for them to be denied access is just an unbelievable thing. I hope that will also change. I know that they are undergoing the investigation of this regardless. They want to get everything, not just the videos, and they have to turn those over. And part of this ICE problem of these untrained groups of officers just from other states that don't know our Minnesota roaming our streets is going to result in some very serious situations if they don't leave soon. It has already resulted in 2 deaths.
As you head back to Washington, another topic is, not supporting funding, continued funding for ICE, which brings concerns of maybe a partial government shutdown. I mean, what's the situation here?
Okay, so the important thing to know is we have had a number of bipartisan bills. So that if we can get, there's 5 bills, and if we can get these bills done, and which I support outside of ICE, then it would be a focus on ICE. And we've already funded the government through bipartisan bills, so it would not be, depending on how the Republicans want to handle this, some across-the-board shutdown. This discussion of our ability to represent our constituents and say, this has got to change. We want immigration enforcement. We want order at the border. But what we don't want is groups of basically thugs roaming our streets, not following the law, not wearing body cameras, ramming into people's houses without judicial warrants, picking up legal citizens, not getting the proper training. They're down to 47 days of training from 5 months. And then just too much money in their budget. They increased their budget. I voted against this by 3 times. They are now bigger than the FBI. They have $75 billion, and you can see the results of it with this surge. I would rather use that money for local law enforcement. Let's give this to the police officers in our state and help our state in other ways with health care and the like. We're always going to have immigration enforcement. We should. But the way it's being run now is just wrong.
So is that potential budget funding, could that lead to a dispute that might lead to?
So it could lead to a partial shutdown. It could lead to some agreement to make reforms. There's all kinds of outcomes here. But for us to just say, oh yeah, hey, we're going to keep funding ICE at its current levels and let them keep doing this in the cities of America, even if they pull out of Minnesota, that's not good.
And lastly, I know you filed papers to potentially run for governor. I'm not going to ask you where your mind's at there because you'll make an announcement when you decide to make an announcement. But how has the events of recent days impacted that decision making, maybe in terms of just a time frame in making a decision, or just some of the questions and things you have to consider?
Well, clearly, for me, I like my job now, but I love my state more. And so that's going into the timing of this. I clearly, right now, when we're dealing with this crisis in our state, you've got to put politics aside. But I am clearly, I file papers. I wouldn't have done that if I wasn't interested in doing this, and so stay tuned.
Thank you. U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar, appreciate the time.
Thank you.
All right. All right, yeah, and heading back to D.C. tomorrow. So, what really is interesting is to get the sense that there's some changes potentially happening here. Now, you don't want to get ahead of yourself because you don't know, but the sense in the air between sort of the toned down phone call between President Trump and Governor Walz, the conversations that she had with the White House, the fact that Tom Homan is being sent here to sort of take the lead on this, and just some other things that give the sense that there is a wind down here that is going to happen, which we didn't feel that yesterday.
No, we didn't, and it is, yeah, it's a tone shift here, and I think maybe as we had time to think about it, of course this had happened Saturday, and I feel like a lot of people are starting to sit in that for a little bit, and we can see some of the, you know, dominoes moving in a sense, and you brought up Tom Homer, the border czar. She did kind of speak on that a little bit, saying, you know,
he's the boss.
Welcome. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't agree with everything he said, but he's the boss.
And when you're sending the boss to town, and two, there's been a number of, you know, and you've seen this repeatedly in various media, you know, legacy newspapers and broadcast that seem to be daily. There's another investigation or analysis of the videos in terms of the gun, and they all come to the same conclusion. And these are, you know, large names in journalism.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I asked about that, and she did mention, yes, you know, the Republican colleagues are seeing those repeated headlines, repeated video analysis coming out, one after another, after another, after another, that all reach the same conclusion, that he never brandished the gun, that he was disarmed at the time that the shots were fired, or the conclusions of those analysis. And she said that absolutely has an impact on colleagues.
We are seeing that even today. So many Republicans speaking out now, asking, you know, a little more questions than what we were hearing before. Did you get a sense of, is she at the point where it's just like, we're tired as a community, we are tired, and that's what I'm going to take back to Washington?
Well, I mean, certainly going to take back to Washington that, but also that this is just reached a point that it should have never reached. You know, that this is 3 shootings involving ICE, 2 fatal shootings involving ICE
in about 3 weeks,
in several weeks, and that it should never have gotten to this point. This cannot go on, and that, you know, and again, in talking to colleagues and saying that we are not going to approve funding for ICE, and there's Republicans joining Democrats on that as well, that all of that changes sort of the layout of the conversation. And, you know, again, the videos speak very loudly for a lot of people.
Does she really talk about the videos in that perspective of, there have been many videos that are hard to watch, but the community is watching, the country is watching?
I chatted with her a little bit about the videos, and just she'd kind of, I don't know the exact wording, but just in terms of the clarity of the videos, of showing the chain of events, and especially as more and more people, including gun rights advocates like the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus and the NRA, disputing what the national, you know, what the Department of Homeland Security is saying. She said, you know, those videos continue to be more and more powerful each day as people really get good looks at them.
Yeah. That is just one of the voices that we are hearing from today. There's so many developments, as you know, Rob, that we're just trying to bottle up here and explain it to some of our viewers. But yeah, a lot of people reacting off of Operation Metro Surge, and especially after what happened on Saturday, the deadly shooting of Alex Preddy. We want to just take a moment to debrief just for a second. This has been a really heavy broadcast for the last 2 hours. So we do have a moment to zen.
Last few days.
You came in, for the last few days, the last few weeks, honestly. In the last month, in this new year. So, Rob, you came in at a good time. We have a little moment of zen just for you.
Oh, really? What kind of zen is this?
You gotta watch. Look, some fun in the. I was going to say fun in the sun, but not really. Fun in the cold.
Oh, so how quickly does a bubble freeze?
Do you know?
No, I have no idea.
Okay, we're gonna find out.
Who did this? Where did this come from? Greg Kellogg? Photographer Greg Kellogg did this experiment.
So let's just sit and watch. Our producer said we might not get to the ending point, but let's just watch the bubble.
I would think that depending on Friday, if you did this,
oh gosh,
this would have lasted not very long.
Freezing.
All right, well, enjoy this, and maybe you'll see how quickly it'll freeze. Maybe not.
Yeah, maybe it'll pop.
Cliff, we'll tell you tomorrow.
Exactly. To be continued. Have a good day, everybody.
stage of the 470-mile multi-day race. Guess what? He would recover and end up winning the Tour Down Under. That will do it for us. Hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll see you again tomorrow for the Fox 9 Morning News and back here at 11. Fox 9 All Day is next.
Thank you for joining us here on Fox 9 All Day. It's good to be with you. Welcome in. My name is Simone Woolridge, in for Amy Hocker today. We certainly do have a lot to talk about after such a tough weekend for so many people in our community. So we want to just take a look at what we plan to discuss in the next couple of hours here. So we have some new developments after the fatal shooting of U.S. citizen Alex Preddy by a Border Patrol agent. And we have just learned, this is maybe in the last 30 minutes or so ago, we have just learned that Governor Tim Walz and President Donald Trump had a conversation this morning, and they are both calling it a good and productive call. And they discussed the importance of the investigation and who is also involved. So we'll certainly give you that information in just a moment. The president, though, saying Border Czar Tom Homan will now be involved in some of these conversations. And this morning, a new key piece here, a new key piece of information. We learned that Homan is coming to the state of Minnesota. We're not sure what that looks like right now for Commander of the U.S. Border Patrol, Greg Bovino, but we'll certainly ask those questions and see what happens there. Also, something that popped over the weekend, a letter from U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi. She pretty much gave requests to Minnesota leaders, and Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon will join in on this because he did have a pretty blunt answer. His answer was no. So we want to get his reaction to the DOJ demanding Minnesota voter information and also some more information they would like as well. And then lawmakers are reacting, of course. We are hearing from leaders on both sides, Republicans and Democrats, including U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar and Republican State Senator and Assistant Minority Leader Julia Coleman. And I will chat with Julia Coleman as well today. And we'll also have some analysis on court hearings, a busy day today. The big question, though, can the state prosecute federal agents? We've been hearing federal immunity, what that means and what will happen moving forward. So we'll certainly keep an eye on the courts today. We are also watching for a live briefing from the White House. Of course, they have briefings pretty much every day at the White House, but they'll certainly possibly talk about Minnesota and what has happened this past weekend. So we can expect Minnesota to be a topic if Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt answers questions. I'm imagining some of the reporters will ask her about what has happened this weekend and also talk about Border Czar Tom Homan as well. Well, we want to get to this breaking news. As first mentioned in that headline there, President Donald Trump has had a call with Governor